Good morning. It's that time again. Welcome to Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. Those of you that are here and those of you that are with us online this morning, we're delighted that you're here. I'm Reverend Mary Murray Shelton, the community spiritual leader here. And this is the time that we take each Sunday morning to greet each other and say good morning and introduce ourselves to each other. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead and stand up and walk around. Say hi to people you haven't said hi to yet this morning, and introduce yourself to anybody you don't know, and make each other welcome. And those of you online, do the same at home. Make yourself welcome. Go get another cup of tea or coffee. Have a little jog around the living room. In just a moment, we'll be right back to sing our opening song. So hang in there with us. Morning. We have Nathan Aswell back with us this morning from Vancouver. He is doing morning musings every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock on his Facebook page. So if you want to go to morning musings with him at that time, just look up Nathan Aswell, as his name is spelled up on the screen. 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, he does an insight, a new chant, and a contemplative silence, and you can join him online for that. But he's been singing for us long distance for a while now, and he's going to do a Karen Drucker song this morning that we all know. So please stand and join us for the morning song, God is My Source.
Warm greetings, everyone. It's always a great pleasure for me to be with you at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. In honor of this month's theme, Going Deep and Rising High, and of today's theme, I Rise in God, I'd like to kick things off with an up-tempo version of a song by my dear friend Karen Drucker called God is My Source. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, love gives me everything I need. Joy is my source, joy is my power, joy gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, joy gives me everything I need. Peace is my source, peace is my power, peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, peace gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need.
Yeah, you sound great. You may be seated. Wonderful. So this is the time to silence your cell phone and get ready to go within. So in this morning centering, now that we've greeted each other and we've raised our voices together, we're all present in the room as a group rather than a bunch of individuals populating separate seats. So this is the time we take that shared consciousness and we anchor it in our hearts and souls. So I'm going to invite our morning practitioner, Galen Cooper, up to do the opening for us now.
Well, hello, and thank you. Thank you so much for coming to Golden Gate Center today on this beautiful morning to Going Deep and Rising High. And I claim that each one of us here hears exactly what we need to hear, delivered divinely by Reverend Mary. And so it is.
Thank you, Galen.
There's a presence of power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I can't imagine. I know this presence, this power is all knowing and always right where I am. There is a presence of power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I can't imagine. I know this presence, this power is all knowing and always right where I am. There is a presence of power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I can't imagine. I know this presence, this power is all knowing and always right where I am. And always right where I am. And always right where I am.
So our theme for this year is a grand rising. And it seems to me that the energy of rising is one of the things that we see happening around the world and in the United States right now, a rising of enthusiasm, of possibility, of hopefulness, of joy, of curiosity, and of working together. It's good to see that happening. This month, our theme is going deep and rising high. So I talked about going deep the first Sunday, about allowing ourselves to be filled with the presence, to go deeply within that, to allow ourselves the rest and the nourishment and refilling and replenishing that we need to do life. It's easy to get depleted and not realize that the source is always available for us. We just have to be willing to tune into it and get quiet, to be still and let ourselves do that refill. And then I talked about standing on holy ground, the recognition that once we have done that refill, then we are claiming and recognizing the holiness of every place and every person and we ourselves right where we are. So when we're standing on holy ground, we're standing in our truth, being authentic, being courageous, and sustaining that faith, allowing it to continue to flow into us and be replenished. So today, the theme is, I rise in God. And when we have gone deep and allowed ourselves to be refilled, and when we recognize it's time for us to stand on our feet in and as and on holy ground, you almost would find yourself rising automatically in that situation. But life has other ideas. And so it introduces all kinds of things to us. It introduces optimism and pessimism. It introduces challenges and triumphs. And all of those things can be sustaining for our faith, or they can be distractions from it, depending upon how our point of view is operating. If we're really optimistic, then we might be able to think that we are floating and flying and rising when we're actually still grounded. But it is an optimism that helps us move our focus and direction toward rising, like this little optimistic turtle who thinks he's flying because he's on his back looking at the clouds. I always love this little cartoon. There was a patient who went into a dentist's office to have a tooth pulled, and he asked the dentist before this procedure, how much is it going to cost me to have my tooth pulled? And the dentist said, $300. He said, really? $300 for like just a few minutes of work? It seems like that's really expensive. And the dentist said, well, I could pull it slower if you like. Sometimes we need perspective to get a sense of, what is valuable to us and what does it mean to be in truth and be anchored and be experiencing the life that we want to claim and see and bring into being for everybody. So when we go deep, it doesn't mean that there won't be any difficulties or challenges. And so we experience that when we have rested, when we have gone within and allowed ourselves to take that spiritual time to be replenished, that we have more to bring back into our lives. It does not mean we will never have challenges. It does not mean that just because we find ourselves, in that presence, that nothing will ever distract us or distress us, and we won't experience any losses. Eckhart Tolle says, when challenges come, as they always do, make it a habit to go within at once and focus on the inner energy field of your body. Attention is the key to transformation, and full attention implies acceptance. Attention is like a beam of light, the focused power of your consciousness that transmutes everything into itself. So recognizing that the challenges we face from a refilled place, from having gone deep, allow us to meet those challenges with awareness of our inner truth, more so than being distracted by the outer appearances. So we are in that attention place. We're listening to it. We're allowing ourselves to be nourished, to be replenished. And Ernest Holmes says in The Science of Mind, if we allow the world's opinion to control our thinking, then that will be our demonstration. In other words, if we allow ourselves to be swayed by the world's opinions of things, then that's what we're going to experience more of in our lives. If we're looking at violence and destruction and fear and opposition and separation, then we are not only drawing more of that into our own awareness and experience, we're actually supporting the sustaining of it. And he goes on to say, if on the other hand, we rise superior to the world, we shall create a new pattern. I think it's unfortunate that he used the word superior there, because we're not really trying to be superior to anyone, But what we want to do is rise above the distractions and the very convincing distress. Mother Teresa referred to it as Jesus in all his distressing appearances, meaning the lepers, the untouchables, those who were cast aside, that even there is holiness, or maybe in some cases, especially there's holiness, and also within us. So when we bring our attention back to the depth within us, then we begin to bring about an inner sustenance that allows us to meet the challenges of our own lives with less fear, with less resistance, with less frustration. And then, once we have done that, then we want to stand up in our own space, to stand up in our own recognition, our own beliefs, our own understanding, and live from that place. You know, we used to have a saying that science of mind is a philosophy, a faith, and a way of life. And it's all those things. It is how we interpret the world, it's what we believe in, and it's how we live. It should be all those things. So it's not reserved for Sunday. It is the way that we want to approach the world. I don't think that Ernest Holmes ever said it was easy. In fact, as he was being followed by people like us who eventually became Centers for Spiritual Living, his intention was actually to teach people of every faith how to pray effectively. That was about it. How to see God in everything, how to recognize that presence as omniscient and omnipresent and omnipotent, really. And there are some things that follow naturally from those beliefs. Most all faiths teach those things, that God is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, present everywhere, all-powerful, all-knowing, those three things. And yet, most people, including us, don't necessarily live like they believe that all the time. I mean, that would really affect how we treat ourselves and each other. It would really affect the level to which we could be frightened or thrown off course if we really lived in that recognition. If God is present everywhere, it means no exceptions. It means everyone and everything. If God is all-powerful, then there can't be a separate power of evil. It's only human use of the infinite power that's everywhere that leads us off into these other negative things that look dangerous and destructive, or that some might call sinful. Making a mistake, misinterpreting, and then taking action based on that. Anybody here ever made a mistake? Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake. Ever had to correct a judgment? Ever had to apologize to somebody for something you said that you later recognized was really wrong? I certainly have. It's very embarrassing to get caught in that, especially when you've stated it with such certainty. And then somebody comes back and lets you know that's not their experience or that's not their perspective. And maybe they provide more information that then leads you to go, wow, boy, how did I get to this other position? How did I miss this so completely? It's an opportunity, an invitation in those moments then to go deep and to stand up again on holy ground, knowing there's a little bit more holy ground because we've learned something and we've let go of some kind of a false idea. Gregory S. Williams, and I don't know who he is, but I found this great quote from him. He said, "On the other side of a storm is the strength that comes from having navigated through it. Raise your sail and begin." And it's hard to avoid, really, as human beings, with any kind of awareness at all, that there are times that we are in a storm. It may be a storm of our own making. It may be a storm that we find ourselves in and we don't really know exactly why we're in the middle of it. But our task once we're in it is to sail through. I always come back to that saying from Winston Churchill, who said, when you're going through hell, keep going. In other words, that's not a place to settle down and build a condo. The intention is to move through, to find the right way through. And we certainly know there have been many instances in the course of humanity on this planet where that has been the necessity for people. It is the necessity for some people in our world today, more so than others, but all of us face large and small moments that we wonder if we'll be able to get through. And sometimes what we need is the support of others around us that can help us see the truth more clearly and encourage and remind us of what's true beyond the appearances. That's why we have prayer practitioners, so that we have somebody to go to when we really feel lost, who is not wrapped up in the same perspective on something that we are, so that they can see the truth and help us get centered again. Does this make sense? You with me here? This is yes? Yeah, okay, very good. When we're standing on that holy ground in that place, with that kind of humility, then we can be set free of guilt and shame and really stand as holy ground as well as in holy ground. We rise then in our faith. There is a story of an old warrior who was always able to defeat every challenger. He had a great reputation that extended far and wide throughout the land, and a lot of students had come to study under him. And one day, a young warrior who was kind of notorious arrived in the village, and he was determined to challenge this old warrior and to beat him, finally. And along with his strength, this young warrior had an uncanny ability to spot and exploit weaknesses in his opponents. And so he would wait for his opponent to make the first move, because then he could discern what the weakness was, and then he would strike with merciless force. And no one had ever beaten him in a match. So much against the advice of his rather concerned students, the old warrior said yes. He accepted the challenge immediately. And as the two squared off, the young warrior began to hurl insults at him, each one getting closer and closer to soft spots in this old warrior. He threw dirt at him. He spit in his face. For hours, this went on. He verbally assaulted him with every curse and insult he could come up with. But the old warrior just stood there, motionless and completely calm, just watching the old man. And finally, the young warrior was exhausted, and knowing he was defeated, he left, feeling ashamed of himself. And his students were somewhat disappointed, some of them, that he hadn't fought this young warrior. And so they gathered around him and they questioned him, like, how could you endure all that indignity, all those insults? How did you drive him away? And the old master said, if someone comes to give you a gift and you do not receive it, to whom does the gift belong? In other words, we are not obligated to answer or respond to or defend against, because when we do those things, we actually put up a resistance that not only increases the force coming at us, it acknowledges it as a power. The old warrior did not do that. He just witnessed the attempts, the ferocity, the energy that this young warrior was putting into wanting to reveal and defeat him. And he really didn't have to do anything. And so he didn't. And that worked. When we stand in a difficulty, when we stand strong in a difficulty, and we allow ourselves to recognize it and to feel it, and we choose not to go into fear or anger or resistance, but we witness, as Eckhart Tolle says, from the inside what we're experiencing, and we pay attention to our own experience and breathe, Rather than putting outward energy into trying to defeat something, we can begin to shift our perception of how powerful or real that danger that appears to be coming at us really is. Because often that is just the front vision of it. But what's underneath that can often also be fear or weakness or doubt. And when we give it recognition, we loan our own strength to it. Is this making sense? Are you catching what I'm saying here? Yeah? So instead, when we rise in God, in taking time to be aware of our own inner experience and not reacting, then we have the opportunity to enter into a greater sense of peacefulness by not ranting, not labeling, but noticing the feeling. What is this feeling that I'm having? Where does this come from? Why am I gravitating toward this? Those self-reflective kinds of questions bring us more information rather than just repeating our familiar pattern of upset. And so when we rise then in that presence, as Francis Cook says, and he's a Buddhist scholar, I am in some sense boundless, my being encompassing the farthest limits of the universe, touching and moving through every atom of existence. The same is true of everything else. It's not just that we are all in it together. We all are it, rising and falling as one body. And Maxwell Maltz told, in his book Psycho-Cybernetics, said that Schubert, the composer, Franz Schubert, told a friend that his own, Schubert's, creative process consisted in, quote, remembering a melody that no one had ever heard or thought of before. Remembering, that's interesting to me, putting it together again. So when we rise in God, we begin to perceive the oneness, not only in those that agree with us, but that we share oneness with those that we don't agree with. That the fear and the frustration and the anger that we might feel inwardly in response is also what they're feeling. And that we are essentially in the same place right now in this moment of fear or frustration or anger. And so meeting each other with the same energy just increases that. What do we want to do instead? It's more difficult than going with the first knee-jerk kind of reaction. It's just more difficult to have that kind of awareness. So it requires attention, as Eckhart Tolle was saying, attention to our inner experience. Then it requires patience with ourselves, because we're not going to do this perfectly. At least if you do, please let me know, because I haven't seen anybody yet do it perfectly consistently, at least. But the attempt, just the attempt, has value. It's like that grain of mustard seed, that faith that's only the size of a grain of mustard seed. It makes a difference. That one piece of sand, that one grain, makes a difference. And the more we come back to that, the more a few more grains join in and a few more grains join in, so that we become more likely to gravitate toward paying attention within first. But it does require patience, because it's not immediate and it takes time. And then we also want to bring faith into it, the recognition, the willingness to explore, to try it out, to put it to the test with genuine attempts to do this, to pay attention to it. And as we do that, and as we recognize our connection, we begin to rise in love, in forgiveness, in understanding even. We come into a place of reclaimed wholeness where the separated parts of whoever that is and whoever I am, the separated parts we discover are not separated at all. We are in sync in terms of what we're feeling, and I'm choosing, if I do, to try and make a shift that may change how I respond and may cause a shift here. Might not, but why not choose peace myself rather than try and push back on that? There's a story in the book of Exodus. I started talking about it last week or the week before. Last week, when Moses hears the voice from the burning bush call his name. You remember this? I was saying about this. He sees the burning bush, first of all. He sees that it's burning, but it's not being consumed by the fire. And that, he's curious about that. Why is that happening? So he moves toward this bush. And when he does that, it says, Moses. He does not run, which I find amazing. Instead, he says, here I am, like it's perfectly normal to be having a conversation with a bush, let alone one that's on fire. But then God tells him eventually, he says, take off your shoes, you're standing on holy ground. And then he says, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Now remember, Moses was in hiding because he had murdered one of Pharaoh's soldiers who was whipping and mistreating the enslaved people, the Israelites who were building for them. Now God is saying, you have to go back. You have to march back in there, and you have to tell Pharaoh to let the people go. And God says, I will be with you. Here's your encouragement. You're going to be okay. I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will all worship God on this mountain, Mount Hebron, the mountain of God. And Moses was not convinced. You ever use delay tactics when you don't want to do something? Remember doing that with your parents, or remember your kids doing that with you? So Moses says, suppose I go to the Israelites and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? And God says, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. And then God realizes Moses isn't buying it. And so he says, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. Moses still isn't getting it. And he says, well, what if they don't believe me? Or they don't listen to me? Or they say, the Lord did not appear to you. And God says, Moses, what have you got in your hand there? And Moses said, it's a staff. God says, throw it down on the ground, Moses. And so he does, and it turns into a snake. And Moses is, kind of freaked out, right? And then God says, reach out your hand and pick it up by the tail. So he does, and it turns back into a staff. And this, God says, is so they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, has appeared to you. And then he figures he better go a little further. So God says, put your hand into your cloak, Moses. And he puts it in his cloak, and he takes it out, and it's become covered with leprosy. It's all white with leprosy. And God says, put it back in your cloak. And he puts it back in. And when he pulls it back out, it's completely normal again. And God says, if they don't believe you or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second. But if they don't believe either of these two signs or listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground, and the water you take from the river will become blood on the ground. What else could you ask for? You have a staff that turns into a snake. You can show people that you can clean leprosy just by putting your hand in your cloak, and you can turn water into blood right there. What else do you need? That's it. And Moses says, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent." Right now he's saying, I don't want to do this. I won't be a good representative. I can't speak. I have a speech impediment. You know this. I don't think well on my feet. I get all confused and twisted, and I'm slow of speech and tongue, he says. God says to him, "Moses, who made your mouth?" Basically is what he says. He says, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and teach you what to say." And Moses again says, "Please, God, send somebody else." So it says, the Lord's anger burned against Moses. Can you see this as like a parent? I mean, this is a metaphor, right? In Judaic writings, and in that part of the world at that time, stories and visions and dreams were the way in which they taught lessons, right? So the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and finally he says, "What about your brother Aaron?" He says, I know he can speak well. He's already on his way to meet you. He'll be glad to see you, and you shall speak to him, and I will put the words in both your mouths, and I'll help you both speak and teach you what to do. He'll speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he was your mouth, and as if you were God to him. But take this staff in your hand so you can perform the signs with it. And finally, Moses goes. It's one of those conversations every parent recognizes. No, I don't want to. I'm too tired. I have to do my homework. The dog ate my homework. Whatever it is, it's excuse after excuse after excuse. Don't send me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. But you're the one who needs to do it. It reminds me of this scene in the movie Heartburn with Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson, where she's about to have the baby, the first baby, and she's in labor and she's breathing, and he says, "Honey, you can do this." And she says, "I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, honey. Can't we get somebody else to do it?" Well, no. In that moment, she has to do it. It's going to happen. And this is true with Moses. He's the one. He's the one that needs to do it. I would imagine this conversation, this story of Moses in Exodus, is kind of like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane saying, "I'd really like to get out of this, but if it has to be me, then I'm here. But if I could skip this, I'd prefer to do that." That's a little more mature than what Moses is doing. He's making a lot of excuses to get out of it. But finally, Moses learns that he can do it, and he learns by doing it, by going with Aaron, by taking the staff, by doing this stuff, even though it scared him, even though he was afraid to, even though he didn't think he knew how. So this is like us. When we are experiencing something where we're in a conversation, not somebody else, that we can't get out of in the moment, and we don't know how to respond to it, but we have a lot of feelings going on, this is the time to go deep, to refill, to recognize we're standing supported on holy ground and as holy ground. And we are speaking into the one, even if the appearance in front of us does not appear capable of hearing that or responding to that or even recognizing us. When we do that, then, we begin to learn that we can by doing it. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says in an article, there's an article that he wrote that was in the Science of Mind. The quote actually came from something else he'd written, but he says, God is our life now. It's not a life that we're going to attain someday. It is our life. We are not gradually becoming unified with God. We cannot be separated from God. We shall never have to unify with God, but we shall have to recognize that we are not separated from God. We shall have to realize that. Then anything in our experience that appears to be separated will flow together. It will rush together as the mountain torrent rushes across the valley to join the ocean. There's a reason why people in the world, the handful of them that there are at any given time, like Eckhart Tolle, why they attract thousands of people to them. Because they are this reflective place of non-reactivity. And that is something that exists in all of us. It is a choice in any given moment. When we first decide that we're going to practice this, we're likely to forget it when the moment arises. And then eventually we'll remember it right after we didn't do it. And then eventually we'll see the choice coming, but we'll still make the old choice because it just feels more comfortable, more familiar. And then finally, we'll actually make the choice to try this, and it will feel scary and unfamiliar and difficult, and we won't do it very well. But the next time, it'll be a little bit easier, and so on. Why take birth and come to this planet to live in the midst of all this diversity and differences unless there was a reason for us to learn to see through it? And so, here we are, alive and given this opportunity at any given moment. Even when we are in conflict with ourselves and we're the ones we need to step back from and go within. It applies everywhere. It applies with your kids, your pets, your siblings, your parents, your grandkids, and yourself. This is us. Let's go within and anchor this now in prayer together. So we move into awareness of the one presence, the infinite, the higher power, God, by whatever sacred name you call it, filling this place and being every one of us, uniquely manifesting as us in the world with an opportunity, an invitation, and openness. And we are here for the invitation. We are here to act on the opportunity, to open even further, to go more deeply into the truth of who we are, to allow ourselves to be filled and restored and replenished in that, to stand in that, and to rise from that place in love and grace. We are in the process of doing this, of learning this, of practicing this in our lives. And this very awareness is now anchored in consciousness by our recognition of it. It is now more accessible for our use because of our recognition of it. And in this, we are blessed abundantly. So we receive and accept and call forth and act on this gift from a place of love and faith and forgiveness. And knowing this is fully given to us as well, we release this prayer with rejoicing and gratitude, and we let it be so. And together we say, and so it is. Yes. Please stand and join me now for the morning affirmation. I am an expression of the great mystery. It is what and who I am. So the presence and power go to work through me, and I am inspired, fulfilled, lifted in joy. Nothing can remove me from the divine, and there is no limit to my life. And so it is. You may be seated. And I'm inviting now the ushers to come forward to prepare to receive the offering. For those of you who are online this morning, if you'd like to make an offering to Golden Gate, we would love that. Please text whatever dollar amount you want to give to the number on the screen, and then just follow the directions. And for all those of us who are here, if you are here for the first time this morning, your presence is your gift. But it also is a gift of all of us here, as well as everything that we've given to Golden Gate in service, in know-how, in financial giving, and in every other way that we bless Golden Gate. So we want to add our blessing, our acknowledgement to those gifts. And we do that by taking the gift that you give today, even if it's you, and holding your hands over your heart with that gift. And we say this together in blessing of our gift. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. This life is mine. Power to create my world. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. This life is mine. Power to create my world. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. This life is mine. Today is a new day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Won't let my history mess with my destiny. This life is mine. Today is a new day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Won't let my history mess with my destiny. This life is mine. Today is a new day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Let my history mess with my destiny. I have the power. No. This life is mine. Today is a new day. New day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Let my history. My destiny. My destiny. This life is mine. Today is a new day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Won't let my history mess with my destiny. I have the power. This life is mine. Today is a new day. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. Won't let my history mess with my destiny. I have the power. This life is mine. I have the power to create my world. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. This life is mine. To create my world. I choose what I want to do, and I do it well. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power. I have the power to create my world. I have the power.
Woo! Yeah. So now, on behalf of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, we do, all of us, accept this offering, and we send it out into the world so that more of us can take a moment to reflect and rise in God. And so it is. If you're here for the first time this morning, I want to draw your attention to the table back here. This is our welcome table. We have all sorts of things up there that you can take with you if you like, anything you're curious about. And if you take a welcome packet, fill out the blue card inside, give it to Galen back there, and she's going to give you a free gift, which is a little book. That's our gift to you, our thank you for being here this morning, and our invitation to you to come back and be with us again in the future. We'd love to see you and get to know you as we go along. And I also want to extend a great thanks to everybody who participated in putting all this together this morning. So we have our chairs, our altar, our sound, our practitioners, and snacks, which will be appearing in just a moment. The coffee is already out. So let's give our acknowledgement to everybody who participated in that today. The membership class is beginning next Sunday. It's a 3-week free class. Anybody is welcome to take it. There is no obligation to become a member just because you've taken the class, but it is required to become a member that you take the full class. And those of you online who may want to be distance members or online members of Golden Gate, you can also take this class. It's going to be offered on Zoom from 12:30 to 2:30. Our Leadership Council President, who is also a practitioner, Karen Frost, and I are going to facilitate this class. And please sign up at the events table back here to let us know that you're interested with your contact info, or you can email our office, administrator@ggcsl.org. And Sonia will make sure you get the Zoom link and the handouts for the class. Also, I want to call Leslie Giannetti, one of our prayer practitioners, up to tell you about this new iteration of the Sacred Grieving Workshop that she's going to be doing in September, in a couple weeks.
Well, hello, dear ones. So this iteration is going to be focused on forgiveness as a spiritual practice, because we've learned that if you have a trauma in your life, we really need spirituality for true healing. And when we forgive ourselves or forgive someone else, we really are opening up to our wholeness, and in our wholeness we can embody freedom. Freedom is our divine birthright. So I have a meditation that I created for this, and this is where we come together in sacred community and fellowship, and we open our hearts to our greatest good. And there's something I want to say about the building. The front door is going to be locked at 5 minutes after 1, but we will have a door monitor there because of the situation that happened. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. If you are interested in traveling to Bali or Bhutan or New England, we're setting up now the Zoom meeting with Reverend Karen Fry, one of the co-owners of Spirit Tours. I've got the sign-up sheet now. It's not on the table anymore. If you're not on the sign-up sheet, let me know this morning if you want to be included in that Zoom call. We will be sending out the information to all of you who have expressed interest in sacred travel to any of these 3 places, and we'll take it from there. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, remember when you come in on Sunday to envision music happening over here, live music. Envision the band, envision the music director, envision wonderful, uplifting music. We're making space in consciousness. We're growing what we call a mental equivalent of having it there. And part of that is just envisioning it and experiencing the idea of how much you love the music when that's happening. So that helps welcome this wonderful person we're getting ready to bring into our lives. The next opportunity to serve at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank in the warehouse is coming up in the middle of September. It'll be the 17th, that's a Tuesday, from noon until 2. If you're available and you'd like to help out, it's just mostly packing boxes and things like that, and you'll be there with other volunteers from GGCSL, as well as volunteers from other churches and other places at the warehouse in San Rafael. Please talk to Ellen Nicosia right here in the front row if you'd like to be part of the team for September. You can also text or email her at the information on the screen. I'm going to be teaching a Science of Mind class that I don't know that we've ever offered. It's called Creativity and the Creative Process. It is based on Thomas Troward's book, The Creative Process in the Individual, and it's 6 weeks. I'm going to be teaching it on Tuesday evenings on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you are. You can definitely take the class from 6 o'clock until 8:30, and it begins September 24th. We don't have a sign-up sheet back there yet, but we will next week, and we'll be getting registration going immediately after that. So you might want to put that on your calendar if you're interested in growing consciousness in the creative process. Also, I want to remind you how important prayer is in our lives and how much value it can give to you in terms of lifting you emotionally and mentally out of challenges. Our active practitioners who are on duty today are Selma and Dana, and you can go to them after the service and they will take you privately backstage to an area here for prayer, where you can tell them what's going on and they'll do a prayer for you all in one. And there'll be plenty of time to come back and have snacks. So just go to the table after the service, or you can leave a written prayer request over there. I'd like to invite the practitioners now to stand up around the room as we come to a conclusion this morning. You can always ask any of these stole-wearing practitioners anything about what practitioners are or what they do if you're curious, but right now, let's go within. As we come to a conclusion this morning, we bless every person in this place, knowing that they are the Holy One of God. Each one of us, in the omnipresence of God, is filled with that oneness, with that presence, with that love. And we are called forward in our uniqueness now to allow ourselves to become more aware of that connection to infinite consciousness, knowing what we need to know, having the courage to step forward when we need to do that, and the peace to rest and relax in the one when it's time to refill. We're grateful for balance. We're grateful for this vision of wholeness in the world. We welcome that feeling of a world that works for everyone, and we welcome it for ourselves as well. So with gratitude, we let this word go into the law and simply let it be so. And together we say, and so it is. Yes. Please stand and join me for the closing blessing and song right now. And we do the blessing together. So we say this: I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God, and whoever places a hand in mine is lifted, and whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness, for spirit and all people and I are one eternally, and so it is.
Thanks very much, everyone, for being here this morning. I'd like to take us out with an up-tempo version of a song we sang together last January, Higher Place, Up, 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 by Daniel Nahmod. Up, up, up to a higher place. Up, 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 far beyond this time and space. Up, up, up to a higher place. I feel my soul rise into a higher place. A higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rise into a higher place. Higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rise into a higher place. No more forward, no more backward. no more spinning around and around. My life is moving ever upward. My feet are leaving the ground. Up, up, up to a higher place. Up, 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 far beyond this time and space. Up, up, up to a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. Higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. Higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. No more downward, no more darkness, no more wondering the point of it all. My life is destined for greatness. My soul has answered the call. Up, up, up to a higher place. Up, 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 far beyond this time and space. Up, up, up to a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. A higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. Higher place, a higher place. I feel my soul rising to a higher place. I feel my soul rising to